Hey Paul, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited. I really enjoyed the movie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad that you watched it. I'm very pleased that it's out there and people are covering it. I'm thankful to The Blaze for hosting a review of the film, and I'm thankful for this interview.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's the let's start with the backstory. The backstory is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I can. Well, yeah. It's a long backstory. I mean, I can go all the way back to when I got into filmmaking, way back in high school, and just been pursuing it ever since. And then uh, I had written seven screenplays prior to making this film. And anybody who knows Hollywood is a very difficult place to get a project off the ground. Regardless of who you know or your talents or anything. It's very difficult. So I knew when it came to this project, I knew I wanted to make something that I absolutely, without a doubt, would get made. So I said I was going to make a $9,000, $10,000 feature film. I had as my guiding light the wonderful independent directors of the 1990s, people like Christopher Nolan, Darren Aronofsky, Kevin Smith. In many ways, Spike Lee was a precursor to them in the 1980s with She's Gotta Have It. So I always revered these men, and I figured, why am I not actually doing what they did? So I raised the money for the film, and that was in March of 2020, just before uh, the pandemic hit. Like literally, I raised the money like 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, and if the pandemic had hit earlier, there's no way I would have gotten that money. So, pandemic hits. I'm writing the script for like 3 months in the middle of this lockdown. I don't even know, like 6 months from now, if I'm going to be able to shoot this thing. It's wild, and so I finished the script. Thank
Well, your
God.
your wife was pregnant. You
Yes,
found out
and
she
then
was
we
pregnant,
find
right?
out. Yeah, yeah. We found out my wife's pregnant. So I'm like, okay, now the pressure's really on. I got to shoot this thing this year, no doubt about it. And then in July, an upstairs neighbor breaks a water main while he's renovating his unit, and it floods our bathroom, our kitchen. We have to move out of our condo for 5 months while it's getting repaired. So we're bouncing around Airbnbs. My wife's pregnant. I have equipment stored at my friend's place that I got to go to every Friday to pick it up. I had that small window of time, and it was extraordinarily stressful. I don't know if I could ever do something like that again, but I got it done, and I edited the film throughout 2021 after the birth of my daughter. Basically, got no sleep while working a full time job,
Man,
and had a good run on the festival circuit. Won Best Director at the Pasadena International Film Festival, secured distribution, and now it's out there.
the thing that blows my mind is that you did it for under 10,000. Like it was like right
Yes,
at 10,000, right?
yes, pretty much.
Because I remember like that was the number that Robert Rodriguez gave. Was it 10,000? Like,
He made El Mariachi for 7,000. I'm sure if you were to adjust that for inflation, it probably rolls around 10 to 11,000 in today's dollars, maybe. Yeah.
so what did you do to cut? I mean, how did you pull that off?
Well, with great difficulty. I mean, one thing's for sure is when you're doing a movie at this level, you have no artistic freedom. So I had to write the entire story around what I knew I could get for free or relatively cheap. There are whole story, I would say, points in this film that are decided by how much, whether or not I'm going to be able to shoot this thing. I'm like, can I shoot that? No, and I'm like, I can't let my imagination go away, so I have to figure out another way I can shoot this scene that's practical. So
Hmm.
there's that. So the entire story is written around what I know I can get for free, relatively cheap. I had to limit the amount of principal characters down to four, uh, and then I mean, beyond that, really, some of it just came down to a matter of luck. I mean, I mentioned the pandemic, and the pandemic actually did help me a little bit because I was able to get some wonderful locations for free,
Huh.
or because they were closed down, they were unavailable. I got to shoot at St. Andrew's Catholic Church in Pasadena, which is a gorgeous historic church that's built in the late 1800s, and it was closed down. So they were like, "Yeah, you can shoot here, no problem." It was easy. And I got to shoot at the White Horse in Pasadena, which is also a historic restaurant in Old Town there. It's been featured in several movies, that gorgeous bar that you see in the film. That was closed down. They let us shoot there for free. The Griffins of Kinsale I would have gotten for free regardless, because that's Joe Griffin's bar, but that was closed down. So we had the place relatively it was an easy shoot day because the place was closed down. We didn't have a time limit. So there were a lot of wonderful benefits that COVID actually did supply to this film. And then just some things, I was just able to just through elbow grease and just through innovation, just able to get what I needed when I need. And I would say throughout those 7 weeks, it was 24/7 grind, thinking about how I'm going to solve a problem.
Hmm.
And when you see me on screen, like literally 10 seconds before I yell action, I'm thinking about, how am I going to get tomorrow's set? How am I going to, what am I going to feed people? Like, how much money am I going to have? How much, like, there's so much going on in my brain right before I even start acting in the film. It is truly, there really is no, when Spielberg when he made Duel, he often reflects upon the intensity of that shoot. That was one of his first films that got him noticed, and he's just like, I couldn't make a movie like Duel today. There's just no way. Like the level of passion and energy that was in me at the time that propelled me through that shoot just does not
Like,
exist in
he
me now.
personally couldn't do it, or the
No,
industry wouldn't
no,
accept
he
it.
personally could not do it.
Gotcha.
He said,
Okay.
and that's the truth. I think like I am at a point in life now. I'm 35 years old. There is no way I could do something like that again. It's
Yeah.
just, it was so taxing on the soul, on the spirit, on the psyche, on the body, that there's only, you got one of those things you can pull out of you.
So it's I was thinking about, like, you heard about the set of The Exorcist just being like haunted, not haunted, but like demon haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Um it sounds kind of like you were sort of like lavished with blessings along the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, shoots have, yeah, they can be like that. I mean, plenty of movies can be like that. Just you just get lucky and you get the shot that you need, or just things don't show up. But but that's the thing, as a director, you got to be ready for anything. That
Mm.
really is, you need to just, if it's not going your way that day. I mean, look, I mean, Jaws. I mean, conversely, Duel, Spielberg's Duel, and then it's Jaws. I mean, things were not going right for that film. If you watch, it's a disaster from start to finish for him. I mean, he's having to be innovative. He's having to just like, all right, we can't shoot the shark today. All right, let's go shoot this scene over here, and or hey, we got to shoot the scene in someone's pool. I mean, you got to be ready for all of those things as a director. You got to be ready for blessings. You got to be ready for disaster, and you cannot let either one dictate. You can't let the blessings think. You can't think, well, this is going to be this way tomorrow, and you can't let disaster derail you from getting your movie made.
So some of the like main themes are just like chaos, just constant chaos, and it's so intense. It reminds me of early Aronofsky, just
That's
the
correct.
intense, like it's just unremitting, and it's captivating. Well, the crime noir aspect is interesting. You mentioned the '90s directors.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of, how did you dive into that, or what are some of your influences from the film noir?
Oh yeah, no, it's a wonderful question. Well, it's certainly Christopher Nolan's following was a big influence. I looked to him as a guiding light. That was one of the main reasons that I kept the movie in black and white, because a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're going to do it in black and white? You're going to do it in color? You should probably do it in color." And I just said, "No, I want to do it in black and white." And Christopher Nolan was a guiding light on that, because he talked about how when he was doing Following for $6,000 and owning the corner, you don't have anything, and that's
Mm.
okay. It's like, yeah, we have nothing. That's totally okay. So I shot it in black and white and put in the 8mm film grains in there, because I really wanted this movie to look like we just grabbed a 16mm black and white camera and shot it. So, Following for sure, Pi definitely for
Yeah.
sure. Double Indemnity, big influence on the film, especially the bookends of the film. I mean, straight out of Double Indemnity, a guy driving a car shot, and confessing his sins, what he's done to somebody, and it closes on that. Yeah, that's all straight out of Double Indemnity. And I felt that I've always been a fan of film noir as the American genre more so than westerns, uh, because film noir has always been to me morality
Mm-hmm.
tales, tales of people's sins and their foibles and what leads them to destruction. And that to me was always more compelling than the Western, which is always about how wonderful we all are and how everything works out in the end, and just kind of just creates this pharisaical mindset in people. So I loved film noir for that aspect, and it just goes so well, and bridging that over to the religious aspect was
Mm-hmm.
very easy. Like I said, it already had the morality tales baked in, and putting the exemplum on top of that, it all just very blended well together. Yeah, I mean, if you read, I mean, like for instance, if you read Pardoner's Tale by Geoffrey Chaucer, which is an exemplum, the it's like looking at a crime story in the Middle Ages, which is fascinating.
Yeah, there was. It's interesting you mentioned Chaucer, because Chaucer, and then you mentioned Sophocles and
Mm-hmm.
Solzhenitsyn, and it it's very like kind of like, how Fellini can get like very philosophical, and it's
Yes.
like theatrical. But this was also interesting because, like, if you have a conversation in a rectory, it's pretty similar to that. I mean, it's like pretty philosophical, that somebody very well could drop Chaucer's name, or a poet or philosopher or Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what you're Catholic, right? You're Catholic.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so as a fellow Catholic, one of the things that was super intense was like the inclusion of confession. Uh,
Yes.
that was like, I mean, I think a lot of non-Catholics don't realize like how. I mean, it was like almost kind of a horror story,
Yes.
uh,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
to have that leak of confession.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I mean, the confession, I had it in the back of my mind. I always had it in the back of my mind about a priest that records his confessions. Now, that was partially because I had previously written a script that was about surveillance, and invading people's private lives, and there was a priest in the middle of the film. And so that's where the offshoot of that came through. But I did have in the back of my mind about a priest who's recording his confessions. And I didn't know where that would take me. But I was so intrigued by the concept of that, about someone taking people's sins and keeping it stored and locked up, and freezing what's meant to be dissolved, and freezing that in time for people to find and see. Uh, and that's where I kind of got the idea of the social media aspect of it, and the influencer aspect of it, because that's where we're living now, is
Mm-hmm.
a time where all of your sins and anything that you do can be stored and locked up, and shared forever. There is no absolution. There is no forgiveness in this day and age that we live in cancel culture. And I say cancel culture not as a political term,
Yeah.
because I think people will throw that around like, oh, I'm above cancel culture. I know I'm against cancel culture, or people are getting canceled, so we gotta go. So give me money or something. But that's not. It's not a political term for me. I think everyone has the propensity to cancel, to misjudge someone based on something they said or did, or cast them out of a group. And I think all should be wary of that in this day and age, where we know more about our neighbors, our friends, our coworkers, than we ever did before, and we see more about who they are and what they display on social media. Um, that to me was just all fascinating about how confession tied into that, and the recording of the confessions tied into that.
I like one of the things I really enjoyed probably the most was that there's politics in there, but it's like politics in the way that it used to be in art, where
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like the message is behind everything, the political message rather, and the politics aren't. It's not like left, right, cancel culture, woke, all that stuff. It's just like, wow, this is a human drama that could be called political.
Yes, well, I am an artist first. I'm an artist
For
first,
sure.
and my Catholicism and my worldviews, my philosophies inform that. I doesn't matter what kind of movie I'm writing, uh, it's always going to be in there, that film, even though there's no specific, political. I'm not getting you to vote a certain way, but it's just the morality of the story and what it's about. It's always going to be in there. I mean, even I just wrote a film that I'm working on now, putting together. It's very much heavily inspired by John Hughes. And even, if you look at John Hughes' film, people were like, well, what was kind of because he was kind of a closeted conservative at the time. He had Ben Stein in his films, and Ben Stein has talked about it a lot. And people were like, well, I wonder what was the kind of the political underlying of this. And people were kind of like, well, it was during the Reagan era, and a lot of Hughes films were about, that suburbia is a real place. It's not this trap. It's not this horrible place, where people like their souls go to die. It's a place where people have interesting thoughts, and people are real, and people have real problems. And it's a place where you can find joy and peace. And so that was, I mean, I think someone's worldview is always going to show up in their art,
Yeah.
for sure. But so long as it's the art, it's the sharing of what's going on inside me, what's going on inside my soul, and sharing it with the world is what's important, not the political message.
Yeah, it's kind of happened in Hollywood that a lot of times movies won't even make sense because they're so concerned with the political messaging.
Yeah, and it's a real tragedy, I would say, because the more Hollywood has gotten overtly political, especially, I mean, in recent years. I mean, Hollywood we've always known has been, left leaning, but at least craft came first.
Hmm.
For a good number of, I mean, all of our beloved films that have been created, were people who were of left wing bent, but the craft came first, and so that's why they're reaching for universal truths, and that's why all of us can, read them and watch them. I mean, I would say 90% of them are conservative, just because of the fact that it's about craft and it's about morals that we care about. But I would say in the last 2 decades, started a little bit under Bush and really accelerated under Obama. Now it's out of control.
Yeah.
Is where the political impetus took place over craft, and it's not working out for them. Nobody likes the movies,
No.
and so the right needs to not take it the other way and be like, well, we're going to create political movie from the right perspective. No, we need to get the conservative position on this is to create movies and create art that is universal, that reflects the deep values that we love and hold as Americans and as Westerners. And creating characters that reflect that, and finding artists who really care about doing that, and putting politics secondary. I say that politics, once you make your art political, it's the death of your art.
Yeah. Yeah. It kills especially the storytelling,
Yeah,
which is, I mean, Exemplum it's about storytelling essentially.
yeah, exactly. Colin is a storyteller.
Tell me about more about Father Colin. Father Colin.
Developing as a character, or just kind of like who he is in the story.
Um, the first one, but also maybe if you can, some of the inspiration.
Yeah, well, Father Colin was, uh, I would say he is somewhat inspired by Father Jonathan Morris, who you might recognize from, he was a regular Fox News contributor.
Okay.
And he was, and he's a good, decent man. But he had a falling out from the priesthood, and if you learn his backstory about how he was in the Legionnaires of Christ, and kind of what led him to the priesthood, and how he had a fiance at the time, and how he actually probably was never really called to be a priest, but he became one anyway. And then he, publicly said, he left the priesthood and, was no longer on Fox News anymore. Now, he had I would say, a very graceful exit, and he's had a very graceful post-priest life. He's married now and has a wife and a child, and he's doing fairly well. But I was very inspired by that. I remember, hearing, well, what would it be like if, you gave yourself over to this that you believe is a good mission, and you've sacrificed things. And what if that mission, turns out to be, you see the human side of it, you see the darkness, and you have your dark nights of the soul. Are you capable of handling it? And what does it lead you to? That was what inspired me to write Colin's arc that way. And I think sometimes people have kind of misjudged Colin. What Colin does, he does a lot of bad things in the movie, no question about that. Yeah. But I think Colin is also a product of his environment. He's surrounded by corruption. He's surrounded by cynics, and in a way, he starts living by those rules. And it isn't really kind of until too much has happened, and it's all too late, that he realizes that there's greater things in this world to live by.
Man, it is. He has a spiral.
Yeah.
What? So, how long did it take you to write the script again? Sorry.
About, I would say, I started in March. I finished right at the end of June. So I'd say about 3.5 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was that like a lot of drafts, or how did it flow?
It flowed very well. I don't like to write lots of drafts of the script, mainly because I think when you write a script, you want to be 100. You want to be 10 feet away from your target. You don't want to be 100 feet away. So I heavily outline my scripts. I at least cross-reference the outline with at least one person to say, hey, am I heading in the right direction here? And they might say, yeah, you're here. Maybe you can change this and that. And then so by the time I get to my final draft, I'm pretty satisfied with what I've done. And I just share it with a few people whose opinions I trust. And then they'll give me like, well, this is all really good. I think you should fix this or turn this around, this. And that's how I approach the script writing process. I don't think it's very good for a script when, for a writer to be close to where they want to be. And then, you have people trying to switch it around into where it's nothing even close to what your vision was. So like I said, you want to be 10 feet away from your target, not 100 feet away. If you're 100 feet away, you got some serious problems on your hands.
I like that imagery. So you talked about the exhausting process. That was because there were only 4 of you, right? And it was just so much work. Moving forward, what will you do differently?
Well, I mean, my next project is certainly going to have a bigger budget than this. There's
good. That's awesome.
It's certainly going to have a bigger budget than this, which is good, and it's going to have a bigger crew than this. What would I do differently? One of the biggest, I would say, no so much regrets, because there wasn't really much I could do about it, but I genuinely wish I had a little bit more time before each shoot to survey and plan some shots. So a good number. Now I had the benefit of when I was writing the script, I knew the locations I was going to be shooting in. So I had a good picture of them, and so I knew the exact shots I was going to get and what I wanted. But I would say there's a good 40% of the film where that wasn't the case, so I had to wing it. And so when I watch the film now, I'm like, yeah. I mean, if I just was there and I got an extra 20 minutes to kind of survey and go, take the camera around, and I would have gotten that mirror shot. I would have gotten that long shot through the uh, door frame or something of that nature. So my hope is that I have a little bit more pressure off of me, so I can at least utilize that pre-planning as a director.
There's it. It seems like you had fun, like the edits, or at least you were able to like flesh out a lot of ideas, artistic and creative ideas,
Yeah.
especially like from the like creative sense. And what was it like? It looked like the film grain and everything. It looked like 8 millimeter, right? Is that
Yeah,
the
that's correct. Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the cuts were very creative. Like, um, it was good work, man. Um,
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
so one more thing that was very interesting to me was that you included this like phenomenon of the viral priest try like Father Mike Schmitz or Bishop Barron like
Mhm.
um that was like, and that struggle too, the thing that kind of stood out to me is like the um maintaining like a spirit of poverty and also evangelizing.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I mean, we are in the modern world now, and you know, priests and all kinds of thought leaders are going to be are going to be on media. It's just that's the way messages are transmitted, and and I do believe that God gave us Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen as
Yep.
a model for this. I mean, he was my confirmation saint. I know he's a venerable, but you can choose a venerable as your confirmation saint. So, Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen was my confirmation saint for that very reason. He showed us, I think, that this is what an American Catholic saint can look like. They can be in media, they can be popular, they can be famous, and have all of that. But they can't, but they still can maintain their spiritual mission, their spiritual integrity. Uh, and so I think we should always look to Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen as the model for that.
The model for many things.
Yeah,
What a legend. Um,
absolutely.
okay, so the movie is Exemplum. It's free on
Tubi and
Tubi.
YouTube. But I
Okay.
would recommend I mean, watch it for free on Tubi or YouTube. But I would highly recommend if you can spend the $1.99 on Vimeo to get a high quality ad free stream. It's meant to be watched without ads, or
Yes.
on Google Play, or rent it on YouTube instead of watching it for free if you can, because it will up the quality of the film for you, definitely.
Yeah, I want to second that. Like it's not the kind of movie that you want any sort of disruptions for. There's a flow, and there's an intensity that keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what can people look for, or what can they look forward to?
Well, like I said, I'm working on a whole new project right now. Script is written, building a pitch deck for it. Going to be taking it out to investors very soon. I'm going to keep the project what it is under wraps, but I'll just say that it's something you don't expect. You're going to be 100% surprised that this is my next project. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Paul. It was a pleasure to have you, man.
All right. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
You bet, buddy.